Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This is another video in my series of RHCSA practice sessions where I'm going through these topics to see if I feel confident in talking about the material and see if I'm ready to take my exam. As always, remember these are not intended to be authoritative information, but I do try to give you accurate information with these for your own studies, and perhaps I will either explain something or demonstrate something in the way you might not have thought of that may help you with your own preparation for the Red Hat Certified System Administrator exam. So the topic for this particular video is under the Operating Running Systems section of the objectives, and it is the Preserve System Journals. So the information that's stored in the Journalctl service does not persist, such as if I were to do Journalctl, the very first log here is from 943, and if I were to reboot my system, then any of these previous logs are going to be lost. So as with everything in the RHCSA exam, what we have to do is make stuff persist, and to do that, if you have an objective that asks, or a task rather, that asks you to make the systemd journals or journald stuff persist, how would we do that? So I'm going to clear my screen. I'm going to sudo into root. You don't necessarily have to be root to, well, you would have to use sudo, but I'm just choosing to go into root rather than sudo all of the individual commands. And Murphy's Law is in place, and I fat finger my password. There we go. So I'm going to show you one thing in the journald config first. So let's go into etc systemd and journal.conf. So let's less journal.conf. And notice it has storage auto. This is by default. What's going to happen with this is if the thing that we're about to create, if it exists, journald is automatically going to start writing the journals to disk, right? There are a couple of other options as well. As this file says, you can take a look at the man pages, and with those other options, you can specify other locations for the log files and such. But we're just going to be dealing with the defaults for this, which I imagine for the RHCSA exam, if there's a task where journald has to be made persistent, I imagine they're going to have us mainly working with defaults. So what we'd have to do for this, we're going to go into the var log folder, where a lot of our logs live. If we were to make a directory and name it journal, that's all we need to do. So if I were to do ls-l, we see journal right here. And if I were to ls into journal, or ls journal, well, in theory, it should, Journa, did I spell that right? Yeah, I spelled it right. Gotta love live, right? So, ls journal. You know, I did a test of this prior to making this video. I was doing some testing yesterday, and it immediately started writing to the journal. Huh, curious that it's not doing it now. All right, I'm curious. Let me reboot real quick. And let's see if this starts writing to the journal file. I believe that it will. I know there are some permissions that need to be set, and that was actually something else I was going to talk about, and the fact that when I was doing my testing, you can set the permissions for this, but it seemed like when once you had rebooted, even if you did not explicitly set the permissions the way they were going to be, or the way they need to be set, they would be set automatically. Well, let's see what happened. All right, let's go to activities. I wonder if Control-T works in the VM. Let's just see. Nope, maybe super key T. Nope. All right, so I do need to go through the GUI. you would think I've done enough of these videos, I'd know if I have a keyboard shortcut available to me. All right, so let's take a look at Journalctl. All right, so it did persist because we see 943. You can see the time on the VM is 9:51. So let's go in. Let's get in as root. So journal, it's ls journal. Okay, now we have something in there. And if I were to ls into that, we have some journal files. Now, these are not flat text files. For example, if I were to tail journal and then system.journal, yeah, we see a bunch of that because this is actually a database. So, but the information is still available with Journalctl. The other thing I want to show, let me clear my screen, ls-l, is notice the permissions have changed since before. You have group owner systemd.journal, and the permissions, you have the set GID bit. Also has an access control list, which I think is interesting. That's your plus sign there. What I had seen with some other training is you can go ahead and set these permissions, but not to make this video go any longer, but I'm curious. Get facle journal. I wonder what the access control list is. So looks like, okay, so it's added ADM and wheel and such to that in addition to the original permissions. All right, well, that was more of a curiosity on my part. I was not expecting that to show access control list. That's something I didn't notice in my test. Ultimately, though, if you need to preserve system journals, you create that folder, var log journal. That's assuming that you haven't made any changes to default configuration for Journalctl. And I would imagine perhaps restarting the Journalctl service would be enough, or you might need to completely kill the processes for Journalctl and then start Journalctl. Regardless, a reboot will definitely get it going for you, and it being the saving the logs to your disk. So I hope you found this useful for you, and maybe especially with the little file permission, you might have not noticed that before. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you click like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell when you do, and feel free to leave comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.